Ayakwe Naknamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. Today we will be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. So this is a pretty big staple in terms of this time of year to do the mid-year book freakout tag. I know that like half of BookTube does it in June and half of BookTube does it in July. I'm trying to do it so it's mid-June now. I'm hoping to post it towards the later part of June, maybe early part of July. But yeah, this is a pretty huge staple for BookTube, particularly during this time of year, and basically it's just a book tag to let us check in and on our reading. So let's get into it. Let's get into the questions. The first question is the best book I've read so far in 2022. I've read multiple 5-star books that I've enjoyed this year so far, which I'm really excited about, but the one that is sticking to my mind right now, I've talked about in my May wrap-up. So if you want to go check it out there. But that is When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This, I think, may be one of my favorites of the year. So far it is anyway, so we'll see how it fares towards the end of the year. That's so weird to think about because it's only 6 months away now. But basically this is a historical fantasy where we are following Alex Green. This is kind of reads like a memoir because Alex Green is talking about her childhood, talking back about her childhood. So she grew up in a time where children were seen and not heard, where questions weren't necessarily answered. It was considered being nosy and it was rude. So it was always best to keep your eyes and head down. But in 1955, Alex Green is a young child when the Great Dragoning happens, and essentially women are turning into dragons, her aunt being one of them. And when that happens, her mother decides to act like her aunt never existed and adopts aunt's daughter as her own, and was therefore ends up putting on this facade for not only Alex but others that there was never an aunt. Her cousin Beatrice was always her sister. So Alex goes through a lot of feelings and has a lot of questions that she didn't necessarily have a vocabulary for, or the words for, or the gumption to ask. And we kind of just go through her figuring out these emotions and her growing up with this, because that's a lot to deal with. Not to mention that her mom is dealing with cancer, her dad is fairly neglectful, and it's just a lot, as well as like why are women turning into dragons? This is something that society as a whole is refusing to actually look into, aside from a few underground scientists and researchers that are being barred from like explaining the research because women are turning into dragons. It's considered a feminine issue and therefore not appropriate. So very fun and interesting. It was one that really made me think, and it's constantly having me think. I really did enjoy it. It's a really interesting look on society. Yes, it's like a metaphor for feminism in some way, and I agree with some things of just like it's very a narrow mindset of feminism because we are following Alex, who is cis and white, and despite the hardships that she goes through, is relatively privileged because she's cis and white. But she also is struggling through figuring out her own sexuality, as well as there are some mentions of other women going through the dragoning. There are other women, but it's like very few and far between, so it does make me question, like, how would a young Black woman be dealing with this? How would a young Indigenous woman be dealing with this? Any BIPOC person who identifies as femme or woman, like, how would they be dealing with this? So I want this world expanded upon. So that's why it interests me, and that's why it, like, I don't know, the fact that how much it has me think and how much it has me excited to like want to branch out from there is really interesting. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Question 2 is best sequel you've read so far in 2022. I haven't read that many, and I would have to say the one that comes to mind that I would think is the best would be Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the third and final book in the Brown Sisters series, which is a romance series by Talia Hibbert. We follow Chloe Brown, which is the first book, Get a Life Chloe Brown, Danny Brown, who is in the second book, Take a Hint Danny Brown, and then Eve Brown, who's the youngest sister, which in Act Your Age, Eve Brown. In this third book in particular, you don't have to read them necessarily in order, just know that you won't necessarily they end up getting the guy, their love interest, and that's that's essentially just spoiled, and once you go into the next book you just won't get their antics so much. But in the third book, Act Your Age, Eve Brown, we are following Eve Brown, who is the youngest sister and still living at home. She doesn't have a job currently because she just decided that she didn't want a wedding plan anymore, so she shut down her website. Her parents are tired of this, so they cut her off from the trust that she's been living off of and say that she needs to go find a job and find a job and a place to live, because she's also living at her parents' house. And she needs to have this job for a year before they allow her back on the trust. Eve gets upset. It's not that she doesn't want to work, she's still trying to figure out what she wants to do. Her biggest fear is that she'll find something she will absolutely love and end up failing at it, which is something she doesn't want to do. So after being called out like that, she ends up going on a drive, as you do, and she ends up stumbling across a B&B, a bed and breakfast that is currently doing interviews for a chef. And she goes in and decides to just interview even without applying, and ends up somehow getting the job. The owner of the B&B does not want to hire her, but he's in a desperate situation, and ultimately his friend is the one that ends up hiring her. So he does a test run. He's also on the autism spectrum and prefers things certain ways, and Eve Brown keeps not necessarily breaking these ways, but surprising him. So of course this is in a way it's like a hate to love relationship between the two, and I actually really enjoyed it for the most part. I feel like a lot of people, I did a series review of this on my channel, so if you want to go check that out. But basically I really enjoyed this because I felt more connected with Eve Brown than I did with Danny or Chloe. I preferred Zaf over, I even forget this love interest name that Eve has. So I preferred Zaf overall, but Eve I connected with, and I think that's why I enjoyed this sequel a bit more. I guess I just connected with Eve a bit more. And I also liked I preferred the third act breakup here. It made a whole lot more sense, and I liked Eve's confidence in standing up to her family and her sisters. Question 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. A lot of this can be found in my most anticipated reads, part 3. So I'm gonna try to go. Sorry, no, that's not what I'm. Oh my goodness. So this is question 3, a new release you haven't read yet but want to. Okay, so some new releases that I haven't read yet but want to. The Violence by Delilah Dawson. This is one that I've been wanting to read. I've had it on a couple TBRs and just haven't gotten to it yet. It's mostly the size that intimidates me, but Delilah Dawson wrote Phasma, part of the Star Wars, that I didn't mind. So thinking about it, I enjoyed it because it freaked me out, but it also thought it was very brutal, and but I loved the writing style, so I really wanted to check out more of Delilah Dawson's work, which The Violence I think would really work out. So I do have this physically, I just have it in another room, so that's why I'm showing the image here. But this one is just following this wife whose marriage seemingly is perfect from the outside perspective, but it has some darkness to it when we really look into it, and it's something that we're finding is cyclical because her mom had to deal with something similar, and she's worried that her daughter is also going to get pulled into that cycle. So when there is an illness that is going around that makes people very animalistic, dangerous, and violent, This wife is using it as her advantage to try to break that cycle. So it sounds very dark. Another one I would like to get to is Hide by Kirsten White. This I just had on my this is what I need to haul for June, but I ended up buying this because it was the Literally Dead Book Club pick for June. I'm not going to be able to get to it this month, but I'm hoping to get to it in July for Summerween. So that's what I'm hoping for. I also think it would be a good one to take with me camping, because we're going camping in July, and I like the thought of reading a horror book while out camping, so long as it doesn't have to deal with camping. This one I believe has to deal with a high stakes hide and seek game, and it played in an amusement park, and I think people die. So I've heard mixed things about it so far. I've tried to avoid it, and basically I'm just getting that from what I've heard Kayla from Books and Lala, who's the host of Literally Dead Book Club, say. I've just like heard some mixed things. So yeah, I don't know. I love that cover too. There's not enough books that are yellow like this. And then there was another one too. Oh no, I think that was and then Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhurst. This is the second book in the Sky and Earth series. The second one to Black Sun. I received an arc from this from Kim from Native Book Lady Warrior, so thank you so much to Kim. I just haven't read it yet. I'm really intimidated to read it, actually. I'm really nervous too, because I really did enjoy Black Sun, and everything else of Rebecca Roanhurst's have just kind of fell flat for me. So I have really mixed feelings about her writing. So Rebecca Roanhurst is a Black Indigenous author, and I'm just nervous that Fevered Star isn't. So this is what I fear with miniseries. Because I tend to enjoy the first one more than I do anything else, except for romance novels. That one series, that tends to be the opposite. But I'm just really kind of nervous for it. That, and I just haven't been in a a high fantasy mood. So I have to get to it at some point. I'm just nervous about it. Question 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So this one I have a most anticipated for part 3, which deals with July, August, and September. So because that's already out, I'm going to try to pick a book that is later in the year. So one I'm very interested in is Daughters of the New Year by E.M. Tran. This is expected to come out October 11th. And it's a contemporary adult fiction, and apparently it's a debut that moves backwards in time to trace 5 generations of Vietnamese mothers and daughters, drawing on Vietnamese zodiac astrology to chart the fateful events of their lives. That's all I really want to know. It's a beautiful cover. Like I said, I love the yellow covers. That's one I would like to get to. Now, this one I just learned about, and I'm trying not to read everything from it, because I am very much interested. This one was also supposed to come out in October, specifically October 18th, and this is Lavender House by Lev A.C. Rosen. This is a historical fiction mystery, and in 1952, the family seat of the recently deceased matriarch Irene Lamontagne, head of the famous Lamontagne soap empire. Irene's recipes for her signature scents are a well-guarded secret, but it's not the only one behind these gates. This estate offers a unique freedom where none of the residents or staff hide who they are, but to keep their secret, they've needed to keep others out, and now they're worried. They're keeping a murderer in. I'm not sure how I feel about this cover. I think it could have been done a little better, but to each their own. So this one, I think I heard about from, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on their name, the author of, oh my god, of this book. I'm sorry, I'm blanking completely. I should know, and I don't. But I followed him on Twitter, and I believe he had mentioned this on Twitter, and I immediately put it on my anticipated releases, because it does sound very interesting. It's called Never Name the Dead by D.M. Rowell, and it's expected to come out November 8th in 2022. Old grudges, tribal traditions, and outside influences collide for a Kiowa woman as forces threaten her family, her tribe, and the land of her ancestors in this Own Voices debut, perfect for fans of Winter Counts. I did enjoy Winter Counts, so. No one calls her Mud in Silicon Valley. There she was May, a high-powered professional who had left her Kiowa roots behind a decade ago, but a cryptic voice message from her grandfather, James Sawpole, telling her to come home sounds so wrong that she catches the next plane to Oklahoma. She never expected to be plunged into a web of theft, betrayal, and murder. Mud discovers a tribe in disarray. Fracking is damaging their ancestral lands. Kiowa families are being forced to sell their artifacts. Okay, that's all I'm going to get into that because I don't want to know anymore. So that sounds intense. I'm very interested. Question 5 is biggest disappointment. Right after that, one of my biggest disappointments, is realizing that Laini Taylor is just not for me. Last year I had read Strange the Dreamer and had loved it up until almost the very end, until the love story, which I don't think was needed. This year I had tried reading Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and basically as soon as Carew and the Fallen Angel ended up realizing they had some connection to each other and were just so attracted to each other, I just didn't care anymore. So I feel like these are books that maybe I would have enjoyed when I was in high school or college, but currently I just no. So yeah, unfortunately Laini Taylor is just not for me. In terms of books that I've managed to get through and found relatively disappointing. Shoot, that scared me. Okay, so my biggest disappointment, The Son of a Wild Snail Eating, was kind of a disappointment because everyone was like telling me how it was their favorite book, and I think it was just the timing of it though, having to deal with snails in my aquarium as well as around my garden and my house. I was just over snails, so I think it was just the timing of it all. Because ultimately it was still a fascinating book and I would like to reread it. Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz was a little disappointing. It was predictable. It was also just like, I don't know. I felt like I've heard it before, and I felt like ultimately the magic, the like fantastical element to it wasn't necessarily needed. Like, I get why Dana Schwartz put that in there because I listened to the author interview, but like it shouldn't take an author interview to be able to understand something. Life Between Tides was a little disappointing, just because it was a little dry in terms of like, it wasn't as much of a narrative as it was just science, which is fine. It was just kind of, it just wasn't as interesting as I would have hoped it would be. Yeah, so there's just some disappointing books. 6, my biggest surprise, that would have to be Dead Collections by Isaac Filman. This is a book by a trans author, and it has a trans main character, but I wasn't hearing anything about it, so I really did enjoy it. So basically we are following archivist Soul, who is working as an archivist for the Historical Society of California, I believe, in San Francisco. And he meets Elsie, who is a larger-than-life widow of a moderately famous television writer who comes to donate her late wife's papers. There's an instant spark, but Soul has a secret. He suffers from an illness called vampirism, and hides from the sun by living in his basement office. On their way to falling in love, the two traverse grief, delve into the internet fandom they once unknowingly shared, and navigate the realities of transphobia and the stigmas of carrying the vampire disease. So the cover of this book was what intrigued me, but the more I look at it, the more I'm not liking it. I think there's too much going on, and I wasn't hearing anything about it, so I was really kind of just nervous about it. And then finally I just went ahead and got it from Liro FM. But I really enjoyed it. They actually, who was the narrator? It was narrated by Danny Martinek, who is a non-binary actor and audio voice actor. So I really liked their work. I thought it was a really fun audiobook, and I ended up purchasing the physical book to have in my collection. But it was just really fun. I just particularly really enjoyed I think this was one of the reviews I heard, one of the complaints I heard in one of the reviews was that it was too much inner dialogue, too much introspective, and I'm just like, that's what I kind of liked about it, because I'm not trans, I'm cis, I identify as a woman, so this was just kind of a fun exploration with a nice, I think, very interesting fantasy twist to it. This is the type of fantasy I enjoy, when it's set in like real world elements and then just kind of random one thing is like thrown in. So like Soul lives in San Francisco and is an archivist, and their life is really pretty mundane, aside from the fact that they have vampirism, which has been used now. So like becoming a vampire is being used to treat other life-threatening illnesses like tetanus. So, which is like really, it was just really fun to explore. So that's the part that I really enjoyed, as well as Stella just helping Elsie through her grief, as well as through her own exploration of gender. So I thought it was just real fun and explorative, and I don't know why I ever doubted it. It's one of those things too, just like, it really just depends on the cover for me. So like, I was intrigued because of the cover, but after looking at the cover, it became too busy for me, and it's not something that I really enjoyed offhand. And that tends to have me deter away from some books because of the cover, which, I mean, much like someone's writing, a cover is going to be objective as well, right? So, but yeah, I just really liked it. Question 7 is favorite new author. I wouldn't say I have a favorite new author just yet, just because I haven't read more than one book necessarily per person. So Talia Hibbert is one I'm curious about, but I've only read like the Brown Sisters series. I believe she is putting out another book, I think in 2023, that I'm intrigued with, just to see because like, I mean, I try to read at least 2 to 3 books before deciding if an author is like a favorite, just because, I mean, I may like one particular book of theirs, but doesn't mean I'll like more of their books. Maybe that one was a fluke, but like, despite reading the whole Brown Sister series, which is like 3 books, it's still a part of the same series. So you would hope it would have very similar writing, or at least a very similar style. So I'm interested to see what there's like authors that I'm curious about in terms of other writing. Talia Hibbert, Delilah Dawson, Sarah Gailey. I'm interested in hearing more of the works. Isaac Feldman. So there's like authors that I'm curious about to see if they will become new favorite authors for me. But as of right now, I wouldn't say that I have a new favorite author. 8, newest fictional crush. I don't really get these either. Yeah, no. 9, newest favorite character. Oh, what was his name? In Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, there's an octopus in there that they gave a conscience to. Marcellus. I really enjoyed Marcellus. So in Remarkably Bright Creatures, we are following several perspectives. We're following Tova Sullivan. This is another book that like I was deterred from reading because I did not like the cover. I still don't like the cover, but I really did enjoy the book. But we are following Tova Sullivan, whose husband has died, and she's been working night shift at the Soul Bay Aquarium, mopping up floors, tidying up, keeping busy, and she ends up making friends with the red Pacific octopus, Marcellus. Marcellus, we also get perspectives from as he's counting how many days he's been captured and imprisoned in this aquarium. And we are also following another perspective, so following Cameron, who is coming up from California to Soul Bay which is I believe in Washington because it's next to Puget Sound, who was looking for his father. And yeah, we're just kind of exploring how all these lives interact and end up colliding together. So I really enjoyed it. Marcellus was just really fun because of course it's like this snarky character who no one can understand and no one understands him, and he knows all the answers. So it was really fun. Question 10, a book that made you cry. I don't know if a book's actually made me cry yet this year. I know with Book Lovers by Emily Henry, I was close to crying because I felt for Nora a couple times, where it was just like, I was listening to this book through Libro at work, and I know there was multiple times where I literally had laughed out loud, and there were times where I had to keep blinking to keep the tears from falling, because there were multiple moments where it's just like I understood Nora in her disappointment in terms of that no one seemed to understand her, not even her sister. So that nearly made me cry. The Soul of an Octopus, I believe, also very nearly made me cry. Was another one I listened to through Libro, and I mean, there were just multiple moments in terms of Cy Montgomery when an octopus actually died. They don't have as long of a lifespan as humans, and things happen, right? Especially when it comes to, wildlife, and out in wildlife as well as within aquariums. As much as we'd like to be able to control everything, we can't. So there was multiple times, or a couple times, where an octopus ended up dying, and the emotion of that was really just really powerful, and sad. So I think there were a couple moments there that I nearly cried. I don't think that there's anything. I remember now. Okay. And then there was my first 5-star book of the year, You Better Be Lightning by Andrea Gibson. This is a poetry collection by slam poet Andrea Gibson. And there were multiple moments within this book, or there were multiple collections or poetry. There was multiple poems within this book that I really felt was very heartfelt and very endearing, and just had impacted me. And so there was a couple of moments in there too where I cried tears, as opposed to Leaves, but it was hard. I love it. A book that made you happy. Like I said, Book Lovers by Emily Henry, there was multiple moments where I cracked up out loud. There were even though I was just saying that there were some emotional moments within The Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery, this one ultimately I felt happy when reading it, mostly because it helped calm me. So nonfiction is definitely one I tend to go to when I feel overwhelmed or stressed, and The Soul of an Octopus was just really pleasant, and especially because I think does Cy Montgomery narrate their own work? Yes. So Cy Montgomery narrates their own work, and their narration was just really nice and pleasant. So that one was just very calming. It made me happy in the fact that it calms me down. 12 is Most Beautiful Book You've Bought So Far This Year or Received. I personally really like the cover of When We Were Dragons by Kayla Barnhill. I think this is a beautiful cover. A recent purchase that I have yet to haul here on YouTube, I believe I did haul it on Instagram, was one I bought for my birthday, and that is Where Light in Darkness Lies, The Story of Lighthouses by Veronica Deladora. Has an absolutely beautiful cover. I absolutely love this. Just gorgeous. And then we have the UK version of Deep Light by Frances Harding. Another gorgeous. I love the blue foil. I'm a sucker for burning light though. So, and then the UK is like killing it with some of these covers, I swear. Because this is also the UK cover of Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan, which also has gold foiling. Yeah, gorgeous. Love it. Let's see. 13. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? So these two were actually on my June TBR. Didn't get to them, so that's a spoiler. I would like to be able to get to them. There was like there was so many I would like to get to by the end of the year. Anything that I like necessarily need to read? No. No. But I would want to read everything. So yeah, that is the mid-year book freakout tag. If you've read any of these books, let me know your favorites, or if you read any of books, if you read any of these books, let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. Otherwise, let's put an octopus emoji in the comments if you made it this far. Let's do a question of the day as well. Let's answer one of these. What was the biggest surprise for you? What book surprised you? Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, I hope that you are in a mental mindset to enjoy your reading, and I will see you in another video very soon. Cheers.